Noise is not volume, it is interference. The loudest thing in the room is not always the noise. Sometimes the noise is quiet. A low-frequency hum in the interior that has been running so long the person stopped noticing it as noise and started accepting it as the ambient condition of the mind. The background processing of unresolved things. The small, persistent pull of concerns that are not urgent enough to address directly, but not resolved enough to stop consuming the attention they are drawing on. The accumulated static of a week and a half of inputs that arrived faster than the interior could organize them. That is the noise this Wednesday morning is starting with, not the dramatic kind, the chronic kind. And chronic noise is more damaging than acute noise because it is invisible. The acute noise announces itself. The chronic noise just quietly takes up the interior space that clarity needed. Clearing is not silencing. Silencing the noise would require the conditions to cooperate, the concerns to resolve, the unresolved things to become resolved. That is not what this prayer is asking for. Clearing is something available right now, regardless of whether the conditions have improved. Clearing is what happens when the noise is brought before God, and the God who does not add to the noise begins to do what only His presence in the interior can do. This is Wednesday, April 22nd, the midpoint of the week. The day when the interior is the most accumulated, the most layered, the most in need of the clearing that only a genuine encounter with God provides. Before the second half of the week adds its inputs to what the first half has already produced, you came here to clear, not to manage what is noisy, to receive the clarity that replaces it. His word declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 46, verse 10, to be still and know that I am God. Two things in sequence. First, the stillness, then the knowing. The clarity that God provides does not arrive into a mind that is still running the noise. It arrives into the stillness that the noise has been preventing, and the stillness is not produced by the noise stopping. It is chosen, in the middle of the noise, by the person who decides that for this hour, the noise does not have the authority it has been claiming. Before we enter this prayer, write in the comments right now, Lord, clear the noise in my mind today, and restore the clarity only you provide. I choose stillness over the static. Write it as the choice before the conditions cooperate. Because choosing stillness before the noise has stopped is the only way to find the clarity the noise was blocking. Like this video as an act of choosing clarity over the chronic static. Subscribe to this channel so we can begin every morning together. Especially the Wednesdays when the accumulated noise of the week's first half has reached its peak, before the second half has a chance to add to it. And share this prayer with someone whose Wednesday you know is beginning with the noise already at full volume, not because you can turn it down for them, because you know the one who provides the clearing. Now let us bring the noise before the one who replaces it with clarity. Lord, my God and my Father, I come before you on this Wednesday morning, and I name what has been running in the interior since the week began. The unresolved conversation that has been occupying background processing since Monday. The decision that was made, but that the mind has not fully accepted and keeps returning to for another review. The concern that arrived with the week and has been adding to itself with each day's new information. The comparison that started quietly on Tuesday and has found more material to work with by Wednesday. The self-assessment that has been conducting its midweek evaluation with a verdict that is neither as fair nor as accurate as it feels. All of it, named, brought before you, not as a performance of spiritual transparency, as the honest act of a person who knows that what is named before God has a different quality than what is managed alone in the interior. The noise named is already slightly less noisy. The static brought before God is already beginning to have something to contend with. Be the clarity, Lord, in the noise, before the clearing feels complete, before the interior has arrived at the silence that the clearing eventually produces. Be the clarity now, in the middle of the static. The still small voice that does not compete with the noise, but that is more true than everything the noise has been saying. Your word declares in the book of 1 Kings, chapter 19, verse 12, that God was not in the wind, and after the wind, an earthquake, but God was not in the earthquake, and after the earthquake, a fire, but God was not in the fire, and after the fire, a still, small voice. After everything loud, the still, small voice. God does not speak over the noise. He speaks after it, into the space the noise leaves when it has exhausted itself, and the person who has been waiting in the noise for God to compete with it has been waiting for something that is not how God works. He waits for the stillness. He is the stillness, and the stillness, chosen deliberately in a Wednesday morning prayer, is where the clarity arrives. And Father, I want to name something about why the midweek clearing is more necessary than the Monday clearing. Monday's prayer happens at the beginning of the inputs. The interior is relatively less cluttered. The noise has not yet had the material of 2 full demanding days to work with. Monday's clarity is built on a foundation that is still relatively clean. Wednesday's clarity is built on a foundation that has received Monday and Tuesday. And Monday and Tuesday are not neutral inputs. They bring their conversations and their decisions and their unresolved moments and their accumulated static. The Wednesday mind is not the Monday mind. It is a mind that has been through 2 days of a week that asks something real of the person living it, which means the Wednesday prayer is not the same prayer as Monday's. It is more necessary, more urgent, more specifically required by the condition of an interior that has been living inside a demanding week for 2 full days. The person who skips the Wednesday prayer skips the most needed one. You came here anyway. That is not small. That is the practice that makes the difference. Father, I want to name the specific kinds of noise that accumulate by midweek that are different from the noise present at the beginning. The first is the noise of accumulated interpretation. By Wednesday, the week's events have been interpreted and reinterpreted enough times that the interpretations have layered on top of each other. The original event is still somewhere in there, but it has been wrapped in so many layers of interpretation, reinterpretation, anxiety-shaped reading, and defensiveness-shaped reframing that the original is no longer accessible as it was. The noise is not the event. It is the accumulated interpretations of the event that have been running since the event occurred. The cleared mind can get back to the original, can see what actually happened, what was actually said, what was actually meant, with less of the accumulated interpretive static. And what it finds there is almost always less alarming than what the static had been producing. The original event, seen clearly, is usually more workable than the version the noise had been constructing. The second is the noise of deferred decisions. By Wednesday, the decisions that were not made on Monday or Tuesday are pressing harder. They have not gone away by being postponed. They have grown. Because deferred decisions carry interest. Each day they are not made, the weight of their deferral adds to the noise. Not because they have become more complicated, because the anxiety of the deferral compounds. Your word declares in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 5, that if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. The deferred decision is waiting for wisdom that the noisy mind cannot access. Ask. The asking is the access point. And the God who gives generously without fault-finding, without requiring that the person first produce sufficient clarity on their own, gives the wisdom into the stillness that the asking creates. Lord, clear the noise in my mind today and restore the clarity only you provide. I choose stillness over the static. The third is the noise of relational residue. By Wednesday, the relational interactions of the week have left their deposits in the interior. The words that landed in a way that was not intended. The silence that was interpreted as something it may or may not have been. The exchange that was brief, but that left a question mark in the mind that has been sitting there running its own low-frequency hum ever since. The relationship that is in a season that produces ambient noise regardless of what specifically happened this week. Relational noise is some of the hardest to clear because it involves another person who is not present in the clearing. The noisy thought about a relationship cannot be resolved by the person thinking it alone, but it can be brought to God. And the God who sees both sides of every relationship, who holds both people in his knowledge and his care, is the one most qualified to hold the relational noise, while the person who brought it receives the clarity about what is actually theirs to carry and what belongs in God's hands. Lord, I want to pray now about what the cleared mind actually receives when the noise has been brought before God. It receives proportion. The things that were enormous in the noise are their actual size in the clarity. The concern that was occupying the center of the interior reveals itself in the clarity as something smaller than the center. It still exists. It is still real. But it is not the size the noise had made it, and a concern that is its actual size is manageable in a way that the noise-inflated version never was. There is a specific account in the book of 2 Kings, chapter 6, that belongs to this Wednesday prayer. Elisha's servant woke in the morning and saw an army surrounding the city, horses and chariots everywhere, the noise of impending disaster. And he cried out to Elisha, "What shall we do?" And Elisha said, "Do not be afraid. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed that the servant's eyes would be opened. And he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire surrounding Elisha. The servant's original view was not wrong. The army was there. The threat was real. But his view was incomplete. The noise of the threat was occupying so much of his perception that the larger reality, the one that included what God had surrounding them, was invisible. The clearing of the eyes did not remove the army. It restored the proportion. The noise was still there in the landscape. What changed was what else was visible alongside it. That is what the cleared mind receives on a Wednesday morning. Not the removal of what was producing the noise, the restoration of proportion, the ability to see what else is in the landscape alongside the difficulty, the horses and chariots of fire that the noise was blocking. Your word declares in the book of Ephesians, chapter 1, verse 18, that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you. The eyes of the heart enlightened. That is the clearing. Not new information about the situation, new sight. The hope becoming visible again to eyes that the noise had made unable to see it. And I want to stay with that enlightening for a moment because it speaks to something specific about what the noise has been doing to the interior. The noise does not just obscure the clarity, it actively displaces the hope, not all at once, incrementally. Each day the noise runs without being brought before God. The portion of the interior available for hope shrinks slightly. The concern expands to fill the space the hope vacated. And by Wednesday, the person who began the week with genuine hope is living in a significantly smaller hope space than they started with. The clearing does not just reduce the noise, it gives the hope room to expand back into the space the noise was occupying. The restored proportion means not only that the concern is smaller, that the hope is larger again, that the horizon visible from the cleared interior extends further than the horizon visible from inside the noise. That is the gift of the Wednesday clearing, not just peace, renewed hope, the return of the wider view that the noise had been narrowing since Monday. Lord, clear the noise in my mind today and restore the clarity only you provide. I choose stillness over the static. Father, I want to ask for something specific about how the clarity is maintained through the rest of this Wednesday once it has been received in the prayer. Because the noise does not honor the clearing. It waits for the prayer to end and then presents its case again. The concern that was released comes back with new supporting evidence. The deferred decision reasserts its unresolved status. The relational static resumes its low-frequency hum. The clarity that was received in the stillness of the morning prayer is immediately tested by the noisiness of the morning's first demands. The practice is the same as it always is. Before the noise has reasserted itself fully, stop. One deliberate breath, Lord, the clarity, not the full re-entry into the morning prayer's depth, the single act of choosing the stillness again, of returning the mind to the one who provided the clarity and choosing that provision over the noise that is trying to reclaim the space. Your word declares in the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 6 through 7, to be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. Guard. The peace guards what was cleared. It stands at the door of the interior and does not let the noise re-enter without challenge. And every time the noise tries to re-enter and the person returns to the prayer and the peace, the guard is reinforced, not weakened by use, strengthened. That is the practice of Wednesday. Not a single clearing in the morning, and then unguarded exposure to the noise for the rest of the day. The morning clearing establishing the position, the midday returns maintaining it, the evening check bringing the day's accumulation before God before it has a chance to run overnight. The noise is treated as what it is, temporary, subject to the clearing, unable to survive sustained contact with the God who is the source of clarity. And Father, I want to ask for something that goes beyond the management of the noise to the deeper question it raises. Why does the noise have so much material to work with? The noise is not random. It does not generate itself out of nothing. It feeds on what is true about the situation, even if it distorts the truth considerably. And the midweek clearing is an opportunity not just to reduce the noise, but to ask honestly, what is the legitimate concern underneath the noise? What is the thing that, once the static is removed, actually deserves attention and address rather than management? Some of what is running in the interior is noise in the truest sense, static without signal, anxiety without object, worry without warrant. But some of it is signal wrapped in noise. A genuine concern that has been processed through the anxiety so many times that the noise has become louder than the signal. And the clarity that God restores is not only the peace that reduces the noise, it is the discernment that separates the signal from the static and shows the person what is actually theirs to address. Your word declares in the book of Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 5, that the purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. The insight draws out what the noise was covering, the genuine thing beneath the static, and the person who brings the noise before God and asks for the clarity to see through it receives not only the peace, but the discernment to know what the peace revealed. And I want to ask for something that follows the discernment of what is signal and what is static, the courage to act on the signal. Because the noisy mind that finally receives the clarity about what is genuinely theirs to address can then face a different temptation. The temptation to return the signal to the noise, to take the thing that was identified as genuinely requiring attention and defer it again, not because the clarity is absent now, but because the acting on the clarity requires something the person would prefer not to give. The clarity is not its own reward. It is the beginning of the faithfulness. And the person whose Wednesday clearing reveals a genuine concern that has been hidden under the static is now responsible to the clarity they received, to address what was revealed, to have the conversation that the noise was helping them avoid, to make the decision that the static was providing cover for not making. The cleared interior and the unchanged life are not the goal, the cleared interior producing the faithful responses. Your word declares in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 22, to not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Do. The clarity received is for the doing. The noise cleared is to make the doing possible. And the Wednesday that receives the clearing and then does what the clarity reveals is the Wednesday that actually moved something. Lord, clear the noise in my mind today and restore the clarity only you provide. I choose stillness over the static. Father, as this prayer closes, I want to receive something about what clarity in the interior produces in the exterior. A cleared mind speaks more carefully, not less. The noisy mind speaks from wherever the noise is running. The reactive response. The anxiety-driven interpretation offered as analysis, the comparison stated as observation. The noise becomes language, and the language once spoken adds to someone else's noise. The cleared mind chooses its words differently, not because it has fewer things to say, because what it says has been organized by something other than the static. The words come from a place that has been in contact with what is true rather than with what is loud. And those words spoken from that place have a different quality than the words the noise generates. Your word declares in the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 24, that gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. Gracious, sweet, healing. Those are the qualities of words that came from a cleared interior, words that bring something to the person receiving them rather than adding to their noise, words that were organized by the clarity God restored rather than by the static the weak accumulated. Let me speak those words today, Lord, not because I have controlled my tongue successfully, because the source from which the words are coming was cleared before the day required them to be spoken. And I want to close with the specific gift that Wednesday's clearing gives to the days that follow it. Thursday and Friday begin differently when Wednesday's clearing happened. The second half of the week is received from a position that is less burdened by the first half's accumulation. The Thursday decision is made from a mind that was cleared on Wednesday, rather than a mind that has been carrying the first half of the week's noise straight through to the second half. Your word declares in the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 18 through 19, that God says, "Forget the former things and do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" The new thing that springs up in the second half of the week requires the perception to see it, and the perception requires the clearing that Wednesday's prayer provides. The former things, the first half's noise, released. The new thing, what God is doing in Thursday and Friday, perceived by the cleared eyes that the Wednesday prayer prepared. Clear my eyes today, Lord, for the new thing that is already springing up in the second half of this week. Let me perceive it, because the noise was brought before you this morning before it could continue obscuring the view. Lord, clear the noise in my mind today and restore the clarity only you provide. I choose stillness over the static. That is the declaration this Wednesday begins from. Not from the noise that has been accumulating, from the stillness that the prayer chose before the noise had finished making its case. The clarity is received, the proportion is restored, the signal is separated from the static. And the day that begins from that place is already different from the day that would have begun without it. To everyone who prayed with me this morning, go back to the comments and write it one final time. Lord, clear the noise in my mind today and restore the clarity only you provide. I choose stillness over the static. Return to that choosing every time the noise reasserts itself today. One breath, the stillness chosen again. Subscribe to this channel and come back tomorrow morning. We are here every day, choosing the stillness before the noise wins the morning. Share this prayer with someone whose Wednesday is beginning with the accumulated noise of 10 days of a demanding life. Not because you have clarity for them, because you know the one who gives it freely. May the Lord clear every layer of noise that has accumulated in your interior since this week began. May the proportion be restored, the signal separated from the static, and the eyes of the heart enlightened to see what the noise was blocking. May the cleared mind you carry from this prayer speak words that heal rather than words that add to the noise. And may the second half of this week be received from the clarity that the clearing of this Wednesday morning provided. In Jesus' name, amen.